Hello, hello. Thank you. My goal in life has been, just quickly, he had said all this stuff about me, which is always a bit uncomfortable. But my goal has always been to, whenever I arrive somewhere, people are like, wow, that's so cool. And so whenever I was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame, which is a massive deal for me, because I don't think I'm that good. And I'm the youngest member that's ever been put into the Hall of Fame, and I go up, and all these people come to Chicago for the big announcement, and I've got a couple friends that are big in the country music world that show up, and we're ready, and the guy gets on the mic, and it's the big prestigious announcement, and he's like, and now here he is for his induction speech, Bobby Jones, and I get PTSD a little bit. So, I'm Bobby Bones. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Well, Bobby, if I would have known that I was going to interview one of the greatest golfers of all time,
yeah, exactly.
I would have brought the whole crew. It would have been a resurrection scene. No, seriously, this man is fantastic, you guys. Delving into the research was a blast because first and foremost, my man Bobby knows how to work hard. And I know that everyone in this room can relate to that, right? So we just want to have a little fun here, have a conversation so you can get to know Bobby a little bit better. And I certainly want to highlight all the hard work that he's done, right? Now, I will say this, Bobby thinks he's here for an interview, but in fact, what's actually going to happen, and this is a very elaborate prank that I've put together because I know the PR team.
Am I nude right now?
You're not. But this is actually going to be my American Idol audition. Bobby didn't know it. We're going to have a new senior division, the over 50s. No, seriously, I wish.
I can guarantee you it wouldn't be as bad as some of the people that we've put through, though, at sometimes.
Yeah, you haven't heard me sing, Bobby. You haven't heard me sing. But I am going to do this. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a quick selfie because I'm a social media dude. So let's stand up, and we want to have everybody behind. Can y'all turn the house lights up for me? Can y'all help out and turn the house lights up? Give us as much light as we can. Half. Boom. All right, we got it. We got it.
You're confused now if to clap or not. Me too. I'm kind of like, well, what do I do?
I like those awkward moments. So we can all clap for the Sunbelt builders because they all got us here today. So thank y'all for being here.
And about that, here's my question for you guys, because we bought a house recently that a guy built right before, and I'm going to use this as, I'm going to be selfish and ask a question here. We bought this house. This guy this house is weird. There's a black urinal in there.
Oh, jeez.
There's in the main bathroom, there's a pink strobe light. There are these weird triangles we bought it. We love the property, but we knew the guy that built it was quirky. Do you guys ever have somebody come to you and go, I want this, and you're like, this is the weirdest crap I've ever been told, and I gotta build this? And I know you do it because obviously they want it, but surely people come to you with some outlandish wants where you're like, this is gonna be disgusting, sir. Does that you can clap your hands. Does that happen with you guys? You walk into my house right now, we've almost got it all finished. You would think I was in the Illuminati. We got the big, ugliest triangles hanging on the top of the house that we can't quite get down yet. So I may have to hire a couple of you guys as consultants after I leave here today.
I love it, man. Well, as far as all you guys in the industry go, I hope you're making as much money as I think you are. I live in Frisco on the north end, and I just hope you're making as much money as I think you are because it looks like y'all are killing it, so hopefully you all are. All right, let's jump in. First of all, back in Texas, I know you've been traveling a lot. How's it feel to be back in the great state?
Well, I spent 13 years of my life in Austin, Texas. And so yes. I don't know if you have any Austinites here. And that to me feels like home because that's where I became an adult. That's where, I actually, it's not where I started my radio career, but it's where people actually started to tell me that I was okay and pretty good at this, and I knew this would be a career for me. But growing up in Arkansas, it was this weird juxtaposition because the Longhorns always beat us up. And here's the thing about when you always get beat up by somebody, you don't like them. And so for me to grow up in Longhorn territory, it was a tough process for a kid like myself. But Texas for me has always been home and warm. I travel we were in Dallas. I have a show on Nat Geo and Disney, just on Disney Plus, called Breaking Bobby Bones. And we did an episode here with the demo company where they had me come out and we demolitioned a house. And, to always be back in Texas, it just reminds me of getting beat up by the Longhorns a lot. So there's a lot of PTSD there again for that too. This whole interview is going to be me reliving bad memories. I can already tell.
Oh my God, I'm sorry I brought that up then. As a lot of you know, Bobby is best known for his eponymous show, the Bobby Bones radio show. It's nationally syndicated, started at KISS FM, as he mentioned, there in Austin. But as was mentioned earlier, Bobby has done so much more. So I work for an ABC affiliate. So first of all, thank you for all the ratings you got us on Dancing with the Stars. He won season 27, right? Thank you. And then obviously with Idol, being on ABC, we appreciate all the numbers. He mentioned, and he tried to kind of gloss over it, but I want to highlight it. Bobby is the youngest ever inductee into the National Radio Hall of Fame.
I was 8.
He was 8.
It was wild. I pooped my pants and went right up and got the award. The whole thing was weird. This is weird for me to talk about, like I'm always uncomfortable, like in my own skin anyway. So I did some cool stuff. Cool. Moving on.
But look, I have to mention the cool stuff because when we kind of go back into Bobby's story, I want you to get the goods, because I think there's a lesson in greatness for all of us, right? And Bobby has been able to unlock some of that. So I do want to set the stage in those terms. And let's go back now. Mountain Pine, Arkansas. I know it wasn't always easy, but what can you share about the way you grew up?
For me, I grew up in a town of 700 people. It was a sawmill town, but the sawmill had been shut down, so more people were heading out than in. And we lived there because we could afford to live there, because nobody wanted to live there. I grew up, I didn't know my dad. He left when I was 5 years old. My mom was in and out. I was adopted a bit by my grandmother. She was an addict, and she died in her 40s. And so a lot of my early childhood was me figuring out how to just survive. Like, I was living in survival mode. And what's wild about it now is I'm an adult now, and I look back at that kid, and I'm proud of him for getting out of the situation. But for me, and I think this happens in so many parts of our lives, it can happen in our career, it can happen, in our life, but when we're struggling through something and we're learning something and we're kind of feeling bad for ourselves because we're looking around going, why is this happening to me? Maybe there's an illness in the family. Maybe there's, a struggle financially. But with me, it was, age 3 through 17. And I would look around and go, dang, this sucks. Like, why am I having to raise myself? But here I am now as an adult sitting on this stage in front of you guys. And I look back at those times now, and I hate that it happened, but it is such a tool that I have now. It is probably not the best, but the most valuable thing that ever happened to me was I had to develop skills, and those skills now have allowed me to have a shot at being great in different areas of my life. It's the hard things that actually have made things now a bit easier. And so, when I talk to people, especially about my upbringing, because it wasn't good, but that's all right, because now I have, again, the most valuable tool I could possibly have, and that is empathy, not sympathy. But I have empathy because I know what folks are going through. I also have the ability to know that whatever the situation is, I'll figure it out. I had to figure out how to eat at like 11. When you got to figure out how to eat at 11, everything else kind of comes and goes. You're like, I think I can do this. This is not as bad as it was then. So I think I can figure this out. And it's happened in my career. At one point in my career, I got fined $1 million by the FCC. It was probably, 6 years or so ago. And I was in Dallas. Oh, no, PTSD. I'm just remembering. Oh, my God. I don't think about this story that often. I was like 5 miles from here. Oh, no. You're watching it happen live, folks, right now. This is it. I was at a... So
you didn't know this was going to be a therapy session.
I
right?
did not, and I'm having it with myself, which is weird. So I'm going to invoice me after this, apparently. So I'm here. We're working at a radio station here. We're on the air. I was traveling. I was touring, and I was also doing some television project. And I'm working that morning here out of DFW, in Dallas specifically. And we were doing a bit because the World Series was happening, and it was right before a home run was hit. And in D.C., they ran that emergency alert warning. This is only a test. But they did it right before the game-winning home run of the World Series. And I was blown away that somebody allowed the test. It wasn't like something really happened. Barracudas weren't attacking the city. Literally, it was just a test. And I was like, who allowed that to happen in prime time right when that home run? And so I did a bit. It wasn't a really funny bit, but it was just to show people how that would feel if something really important was happening. And I said, hey, I've been wanting to share something with you guys for a long time. I said, and it's been, this is something that's been on my heart. I said, embarrassing for me to say, but here you go. I just want you to know. And then I hit a clip that we just took off the internet that goes, and so, ha ha ha, we got a little funny in there. And then I left for the morning. It was like 9:10 when that happened. And so I get a call going, hey, did you somehow like trigger something? I don't think so. They're like, what happened on today's show? I was like, well, went through it all. And they said, well, you right now, 22 radio stations are locked up because of an EAS alert that you hit on the show. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you didn't know this because I literally got it from YouTube. They said that alert was last year's presidential EAS alert that as soon as one hits, it triggers stations all around the country. And so I had locked up, when they called me, I had locked up 19. By the time the call was over, it was like 41 cities I had locked up with this alert. And so, but what happens is the alert turns on, every city is going, gong, gong. And this is a test of the emergency. But what I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know that was going to be the case. Secondly, on the outside of that, and everybody knows what that sounds like, right? Like we've all heard that thing on radio or TV where they're like, this is a test. At the end of it, there's a release point that allows it to go back to normal programming. I didn't let the release point hit. So for like an hour, this is only a test. And not only that, ATT-Uverse was also connected to this. So TVs all across America were stuck on Channel 2 going, this is only a test. And this is right when like there was some sort of like Ebola thing happening. And so everyone is thinking the worst because nobody knows what's going on. Heck, I'm at like Dunkin' Donuts having some nuggets. I don't know at all what's happening. So they're pulling our satellite feed. Everything is going. And I'm sitting here going, I don't know what to do. And so hours later, and like 4,000 busted TV speakers later, because they let us know this had all happened all around the country, the FCC wants to have a talk with me. And the FCC is the government. And so it's lawyers, it's being deposed, and they're like, do you know, on and on and on. And so I'm being told in my ear from people that I work with, you're about to get fined $5 million to $6 million. Oh, my God. Why are you laughing at that, sir? Like there's, everyone else is like dialed in like, oh, I'm sad for this guy. And you got one guy's probably made a little too much money back there going, ha, ha, ha. So I've got people in my ear that are going, hey, this is not going to be good. And I had just moved to Nashville. I'd spent my own money to syndicate my show, right? I had been hustling, and I'm like, well, it's all gone. What had happened was and thank goodness, there was a station in Northern California who took that same little tone and put it in a promo that they were running, and they were like, we're covering severe weather. And they got a fine for like $20,000. Well, our attorney said, you can't fine us $5 million if you've only fined them $20,000. Let's look at the, how different it is population-wise. And so I got fined $1 million. There's only been 3 people that has ever been fined $1 million in radio. It was me and I think Howard Stern twice. So, but that happened in Dallas. And so I'm so not happy to be back. No, I am. But that's like, we're 3 for 3. We just started this thing.
I know. Well, let's talk about a good DJ memory. Do you remember when you were really young, there was a DJ that wished you happy birthday? What did that mean to you, and how did that start you down this career path?
I knew from when I was 5 years old I wanted to be a radio stand-up comedian and I wanted to be on TV. And I was the rare person that knew what they wanted to do, and I couldn't understand people that didn't because I'd always known. And when I was 5 or 6, my aunt had called a radio station and been like, "Hey, can you wish Bobby a happy birthday?" And she bought me a little radio, and he said, "Happy birthday." And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world that someone would say my name out loud publicly, and it seemed like he cared about me. I don't even know who that guy was, but I felt like he cared about me, and I was like, man, I want to do that, and I want to care about people. So for me, that was probably the moment at 5, I think my 5th birthday party, that I knew I wanted to get into media and especially get into radio.
I understand that emotion completely. I was kind of the same way from a very young age. There was a dalliance with a pre-med kind of thing, but inorganic quantitative analysis took care of that, and I got right back where I wanted to be and got into media. What made you fall in love with it, though? What made you fall in love with being on the radio, being a personality, being front and center?
I think I needed it. I think how I grew up, there was no love. Like, there wasn't a lot of love given to me, and I didn't really understand love. Heck, I'm getting married in a couple weeks. Until my fiance now, I'd never told a single person I loved them because it just wasn't said in my house. But no one told me. I never said it to anybody. And so I think it was just me trying to find a way to go out and find love from people. And I could find it. I could get on stage. I could get funnier. I could get on the radio. I could get ratings. And I could feel love from folks. Other jobs I had, that didn't happen. I worked at Hobby Lobby for a long time. You guys know Hobby Lobby, like the greatest thrift store, craft store in the whole world, right?
Love the lobby.
Okay, one person clapped. And you know what? I'll make sure you get a 10% discount. I still know folks. Yeah. Well, I'll see you after the show. That's the show, like I'm the show. But I worked at Hobby Lobby for a long time, and I went in, and I thought, man, because I was working up front where I could talk to people. I thought I was going to get some love up front working the registers. And I go to Hobby Lobby, and my first day on the job, they give you a blue vest. And I thought, I'm about to wear a uniform. I'm going to get chicks. Like, that's what I thought.
At Hobby Lobby?
Yes.
Let's go.
I thought, I'm about to get, because I would always hear women love men in uniform. And I didn't really have the bravery to go and serve. And so I thought, this is it for me. I'm going to have a uniform. And they give me the blue vest. And we had a thing we had to wear. We had to wear the white button-up shirt. We had the khakis. And I go into my first day on this job, and I'm so excited. I'm working the front. I'm going to be able to talk to people. I'm going to be able to do what I do. And I walk in, and I'm feeling sharp. I comb my hair. It was a whole thing, right? And I go in, and my manager comes up to me, and he says, hey, you look great. You have to wear this. And he hands me this name tag. And I put the name tag on. I don't mind the name tag. The name tag will at least tell people who I am. Maybe they have a conversation with me. But I put the name tag on, and I knew from that moment I wasn't going to get any chicks at all because the name tag said Hobby Lobby Bobby, which...
Oh, my God.
Which
so good.
I could do. Here's the chicks I got in one hand. 0. So I didn't get love there, is my point. But I did start to get it. And also for me, what I found to be the most rewarding, because ratings come, ratings go, success is high, success is low. The one thing that I can do is give back. And because I was given to by youth directors at church, my one youth director, my high school football coach, I didn't have a dad, you know? Yeah. And so they were able to provide for me. When I was in the hospital, my bills were taken care of by the church group and some people in my community. So that's why I work with certain hospitals I work with. That now is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's now able to give love back. It was when I started to get love. So, and when I go into Hobby Lobby, I still feel just a little funny.
Hobby Lobby, Bobby. God, that's so good. Bobby, that's really good. I want to talk more about your book, because I love the title, Fail Until You Don't. Fight, grind, repeat. I mean, you're saying so much just with the title. I know that failure's been part of your journey. $1 million fine. Failure on some levels.
Hobby Lobby,
Lord have mercy. But what was the overriding theme and message that you wanted to try and let people like those in front of us understand about your fight and your journey and the perseverance it took to keep going.
Well, and the quick sentence is, and you guys are like me, you're normal folks. I hang around with some folks that aren't normal at all, and they grew up, and they were completely different. But you guys know you don't get good at something just being born and opening your eyes. Like, you really have to work at it and get better at it, and in that process, you're not good for a lot of it. Like, that is what happened. You know, that book that I wrote was my second book. I wrote one called Bare Bones. It was about my life, and I did not think, and it's all going to come around in the end, but I did not think anyone wanted to actually read a book about my life. And I had a book publisher, and I went to this one, and I had a kid's book that I was pitching because I had done a kid's music record, and it done really well. Cracker Barrel bought it. It was in all the Cracker Barrel stores. It was streaming wonderfully. And so I did this kid's record, and I thought, dang, I want to write a kid's book for kids that went through similar circumstances like I did. And so I wrote this kind of idea for a kid's book, and I pitched it everywhere. Nobody wanted it. And they were like, you're not famous enough. Kids' books are, the market is too saturated. It was every reason that I was told no. Over and over again, I was told no. And so, but I got it, but I didn't stop. I went, and I think I went to 11 different book publishers. And so the last one, which was the biggest one of all, which I knew was going to be a no, but I'm always going to go in and swing. And I went into HarperCollins, and I said, hey, this is my kid's book. And they said, we don't want that. Somebody was on Wikipedia, and they were looking kind of at my story and, you know, the cool things that have happened to me, the things that I've kind of fought through. And they said, hey, would you mind coming back tomorrow and kind of talking about your life? Well, I was leaving. I was flying from New York back to Nashville. I don't even really like being in New York City that much. And I was like, oh, man. But I did. I stayed, got another night in the hotel. And I went back and told them my story. And they said, we'd love for you to write a book. I don't know how to write a book. I didn't know how to write anything. I said, and with the book deal comes money up front called an advance. They're like, we're going to give you this many thousands of dollars to write a book. And I was like, holy crap. But I didn't want the money because I didn't know if I could do a good job. And I didn't want to take someone's money and not be able to provide the expectation to be a good investment for them and to be a good investment for me. It's like, you guys, you don't want to put a bad job. You don't want to have a bad job, bad work. Your name's attached to that. Even if you make a little money now, your name's attached to that for 10 years probably. And so I said, hey, I don't want the advance, but why don't you let me write half the book or half of the words that's required? And if you like it, I'll take the money and finish the book. So I wrote it. They said, hey, we love it. Let us pay you, and you finish the book. So I did. I was petrified. I didn't think anyone wanted to read it. Put it out. It's called Bare Bones. It was a 4-week bestseller. And I was blown away. I was blown away because I thought a lot of the stories in that book no one would relate to, especially the struggles and the personal things that happened with me and my mom and life growing up like I did. But what I found was people, again, had empathy, not sympathy, and there is a very vocal majority of folks that are struggling and aren't sharing, so they feel alone. And they're struggling and no one's sharing with them, so they feel alone. So I told this story, and it wasn't all sad, just a little bit of it. But I told the story, and the book did really well. But I was done. I did not want to do another book. I was going to be a one-hit wonder. Chumbawamba, Rick Springfield. I was good. I was out.
Tub thumping.
Yeah, I didn't even want to do another book. I was like, I'm going out on top. The end. And so I'd said no, and they were throwing more money at me. I didn't care. I cared about the money, but I didn't want to take the money and do something that I would have to promote and it wouldn't be good work. And in the end, I would look at it 3-4 years later like now and be like, oh, I'm so embarrassed I did that. Because you end up spending money, but that is still attached to your name. And so I said, no, I don't want to do another book. The TED Talk people had reached out to me, and they said, hey, would you do a TED Talk? And I said, about what? They said, well, you tell us. Like, the theme is perseverance, but would you come and speak on this? And I said, give me a couple days. Let me see what I would talk about, and you tell me if that fits the theme of the day. And so I created this 12, 13-minute talk called Winning by Losing, which doesn't exactly make sense if you're winning by losing. But I told them the story. I said, hey, anything I've gotten good at, it's because I got good at it not being good at it. Like, I had to start at radio. I don't have a good voice. I didn't know how to do radio. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know how to get girls to like me. And I mean, nothing I really did. Everything I had to struggle with, but I learned it. And I was okay with being bad at it for a long time until I got okay at it. And then once I got okay at it, I got pretty good at it because I also loved what I was doing. So I did this TED Talk called Winning by Losing, and I finished, and it's pretty good. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. My shirt was a little too big. I misspelled some stuff on the screen above me. Like, there are some things I would go back and fix, but it was a pretty good talk. But I finished, and I was kind of motivated because so many people came up to me, and they were like, hey, we love your viewpoint on that. It's not all roses and candy, but it can be if you kind of get through the hard parts first. And so the publisher came to me and said, hey, would you write another book about anything? And I still had that in my head, that talk. And I said, I would like to write about what I spoke here, and it was winning by losing, but I wrote fail until you don't. And I said, but I don't want it to just be about me. But I told my story. And the first story I told in the book, because I felt like I was going to be a hypocrite if I wrote a book about how you can do it, but I'm not doing the things that make me uncomfortable too. The first chapter in the book was me reaching out to my biological father that I hadn't seen in 30 years and setting up a meeting with him to talk. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Well, Dancing with the Stars was tough. But it was one of the top 2 hardest things I've ever had to do was sit there with someone who left me when I was 5 years old and have a conversation. And what I learned from it wasn't exactly as I thought. He wasn't a villain. He wasn't Bane from Batman. He was actually someone that was very confused and was embarrassed of his actions and just couldn't go back because he was so humiliated. And so I started with myself. I told my theory, but I also invited other people. Chris Stapleton, the artist, the singer, is a friend of mine. And I said, hey, Chris, would you write a couple pages here about how it sucked for you? Like, people see you now and they think you're famous and awesome, but most of your life, that wasn't the case. And he's like, I got it. And it wasn't. He's a struggling songwriter forever that didn't hit until he was like 37 years old. And now he's obviously one of America's favorites. But I had the governor of Arkansas, who's the governor right now, write one. I had my friend Charlemagne the God, who is a radio guy. I had people that are so good at what they do talk about they're not really that good at what they do, at least at first. But what they did is they screwed up a lot, they messed up a lot, they learned a lot, and they slowly got better. And I wrote the book, and I put it out, and it was a bestseller again for a couple weeks. It was pretty awesome. And so, that was what that book was about to me, was going, hey, everybody, if it's easy, everybody be doing it. I mean, everybody be rich, everybody be in a ballroom in Dallas with the fancy lanyards. But they're not. You guys did that. Congratulations on your lanyards. But that is what that book was about to me and still is.
All right, part of the journalist in me has to take over quickly. Is there a third book in the wings?
Well, now, and here's where it comes back around. Next year, it's already all done. But next year, my kid's book comes out.
Right.
Yeah. So I have 2 objectives, because my fiance and I are getting married in a couple weeks. I have 2 objectives. One is to have a successful kids book, but hopefully put a kid in her, so then it just comes all the way full circle.
That's fantastic. Let's get back. Let's get back to your day job, right? You decide to move to Nashville, jump in the country music scene headlong. What prompted that move, and what apprehension went along with it?
I grew up in Arkansas and loved country music, and I just knew that if there was a place for me to talk to the people, the kind of people that I like to talk to, that was it. It wasn't just about the music. I like all kinds of music. I love hip-hop. I was a 90s alternative kid. I grew up in Arkansas, though, in the 80s and 90s, and country music was the foundation because my grandmother adopted me for a long time, and it was, Johnny Cash. It was Andy Griffith gospel records. It was Ray Charles, modern sounds of country music. It was stuff like that when I was a kid, I thought that was new country music. And then 90s came, and obviously it was huge. But I just knew that I didn't want to have to fake being cool, and that's what pop music is. I just wanted to be myself and talk to people that had sensibilities like I had. And so there had never been a national country morning show. And I thought, my radio show that I built in Austin, I built it myself with my own money. I mean, when I was doing pretty well the first few years doing mornings, I was making $50,000 a year, and I was investing $38,000 of it back into buying equipment to syndicate in 1 or 2 more cities. But the great thing about growing up broke is you know how to be broke. And as funny as that is, that's true. Like, I could be broke right now, and I wouldn't like it. I mean, it's one less Tesla, but still, I know how to be broke. I understand the struggle. And it never scared me to fail because I've been there. I got nothing to lose, man. Let's go. And so I moved to Nashville, gave it all up, and started on like 15 radio stations. And now we're close to 200. We're in, all over the world, basically, and it's been pretty fantastic. There was a lot of apprehension, at least initially, not because of where I was going or what I was going to do, but just because I had built so much with my own time and money, and I had to kind of sell that off and give a lot of that away, and there was no going back. Because once those radio stations replaced me, I couldn't just be like, I'd like to come back. They don't care. And so, but for me to go over to Nashville, and listen, Nashville was hard. Nashville was really hard for me. Because when you show up in country music, and listen, I can talk and walk circles, especially in country music history and in current country. You want to talk, Grand Ole Opry. You want to talk the formation of country music with music coming from Europe and the slave ships and how that's actually where country music came from, and how no one's going to out maybe Marty Stewart or some of those guys that have spent their life really studying it. But I'm the guy when it comes to that. I've spent my whole life studying it. But still people were like, well, you don't wear a cowboy hat to have a belt buckle. You ain't one of us. And I'm like, I'm more of you than you are. Like, you have no idea. And so, but it was a struggle because I didn't look like what country music people were supposed to look like. And they hated my guts. And the people, especially the system did not like me because I was coming in going, yeah, I don't like the system, and I'm not going to do the system, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I'm going to do this my way. And at one point in my career, it was going so badly when I moved to Nashville. It was in my first year or so there. And I was like, man, this is not good. Everywhere I go, people are like, you don't represent country music. They were doing news stories about it. I was being attacked by like the Nashville magazines. And I said, I got to do something. And so I was at home one night, and I'd seen this documentary on Brian Bosworth, who played football at Oklahoma, who then went to the Seahawks. And for those that don't know, the Boss, huge college player. In the NFL, kind of flamed out a little bit. Steroids were a thing. And so, but he had this huge personality. And Brian Bosworth would go to other cities, and he would sell I Hate Brian Bosworth t-shirts. But he wouldn't do it. He'd have somebody do it, and he would sell so many of them. And I thought, one, how about this guy who we think is just so into himself, but didn't take himself that seriously in real life? Like, he was smart enough to go, hey, some people just aren't going to like what I'm doing. Why don't I capitalize on that? And so I saw this, and it just hung with me. Like, don't take yourself too seriously. How can you do something similar to that? And so I thought about it. And then I was driving through Nashville, and there was an empty billboard, and the billboard said, hey, for sale, you can lease this billboard. And I was like, what if I put up a billboard hating me? Like, that's literally what I thought. And so I didn't do it. That's a stupid idea, right? I did it. But I thought, okay, one isn't enough. I should do 4. So I bought 4 massive billboards in Nashville. I had to learn some shady stuff. I created a shell company. This shell company, funded something in Turkey. I don't know. That part's not true. So if you don't post that on Instagram, I don't know. But I had to figure out how to do this so people couldn't track it back to me. And so this little company had someone speak for me. The guy sounded remarkably like me when he talked to the billboard guy. He actually sounded a lot like this. This is the voice that I used. I'd like to get 4 billboards, please. And so I bought 4 billboards, and they said, they were as white as could be with black letters. They said, "Go away, Bobby Bones." And I just put them up, all 4 of them. Didn't tell anybody. I was dating a girl at the time. Didn't tell her. She was upset about it. And I was like, oh, no, baby, I need to back her up. And so the local news starts to do stories about it, like who's putting up these billboards. The national publications are going, who is hating this guy and why? They started to guess. Okay, is it country artists? Is it the people that have already been hating? Is it? And so all of a sudden, I went from this person everybody hated to either you didn't know about me and you tried to figure out why do people want him to go, or they were like, well, that sucks, they're picking on him. Like, he really didn't do anything except be himself. Those billboards stayed up for 2 months. Never told anyone about it. They went away. And I was still, like, a year later, I was still confused at who put them up. I was just like, wow. I would send my own guys out to cover it on the radio and be like, do we know who it is yet, guys?
Oh, my God.
They didn't know. And so when I wrote my first book, it was the first time I'd ever shared that story. I said, this is what I did and why I did it. Because I needed to attract people in a different way that hadn't been attracted yet. I needed people just to give me a shot. Just like what you guys are doing. I need people just to give me just a look. If they didn't like it then, I got it. But we're competing for eyeballs and ears all the time. And I was like, I just need people to go, I'm interested in that. Let me see. And if I didn't win, that's on me. But it gave me a shot to win. And so I wrote it in my first book, and the Washington Post did an article, not on anything else in the book that I thought they would do. It was all about, he put these billboards up. And it was like a second wave of controversy. And here's the thing about me. I love controversy, especially if nobody's getting hurt. And so, for me to find that way to promote myself where nobody knew, I kept a secret. It was a really amazing thing for me, and it shifted how that town thought of me. Because by the time they figured it out, they weren't mad anymore. They were kind of like, wow. But I wasn't welcome. And you asked about going to Nashville. Like it was really hard because most everyone was against me when I went into town.
So the lesson for everyone, right? Because A, it's marketing genius. Outside of starting a show company, what's the advice in terms of, for all these builders out here, what's your marketing advice? How should they go about trying to further build their brands?
The two things that I would encourage you to do. One, obviously, if you're spending money on marketing, find the proven entities first of all. Like you need to absolutely invest part of your money, of your capital, in proven ways to promote. However, some of the ways that are now popular. I remember when TikTok first started, people thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. It's to find and create a portion of what you're investing and take some chances with it. Because most times you're going to miss with it. But the one time you hit is going to actually, you guys know this, it's going to make up for all those misses, period. If it's an influencer, if it's you have a creative idea that you think you want to put you on canoes, they don't do that one. But still, it's trying things out that most people are going to think are really dumb until you do it right, and then everybody comes along and starts doing it too. It's a copycat world out there. Everything's dumb until it's proven. So my only advice is find things that inspire you and kind of get that flowing and figure out a way to do that as well. That's what I did. Like I said, I didn't just go, I'm going to buy billboards. I saw Brian Bosworth do it, and I was like, that is actually really cool. How can I do that? I've been inspired by many people through my career. And I'm like, how can I do what David Letterman does in my way? My TV show now, Breaking Bobby Bones, which is about finding people who have been through struggles and showing how they have fought adversity to get out. It's about me doing crazy stunts, but really it's about the people. And when, I created the show, that is what I wanted to do, was focus on people who have been through it, have gotten through it, and can also say, hey, this is how I got through it. But we had to market the show more than just me being with people and telling their story. So here's my skinny butt hanging 4,000 feet over the Grand Canyon on a single rope wanting to cry. And we're like, Bobby almost dies, 7 p.m. But that's how we got him there. But once they got there, you're able to actually see what the show is all about. So, the whole world, they say sell the sizzle and then just deliver the crap out of the steak. That is what I am doing. You got to deliver the steak. Don't get me wrong. You want to sell sizzle and it sucks? That sucks. They're not coming back. But you want to sell sizzle and have the best dang steak that they've ever had. And that has been, kind of my goal and my philosophy.
Well, I've seen the sizzle reel from that show. First of all, it's incredible. And the question I had was there a situation where you said, I may have stepped in it here. I may have gone too far. Why am I here?
The one I mentioned, that I hate heights. And you guys, the first 8 episodes are on Disney Plus. Our finale's on Nat Geo this week, but I hate heights so much. And so the guy I was with, his name was Mike. He had been in and out of prison. People had written him off. He was, in gangs. But he was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I know it's where I grew up and everything I've been around, but I got to get out. And he found something called rope access work. And so I'd never heard of this. But if you can't get a drone or a crane or a ladder, people have to build their own rope rigs and get to these places that are really hard to get to. And so there's a sky bridge over the Grand Canyon. It goes out over. You look down under the glass, and it's like 4,000 feet down to the bottom. I don't even want to stand on that thing, much less be under it. But we had to build a rope rig, and I'm hanging on a rope cleaning the bottom of it. And as I was out there, at first, I'm just, the night before I didn't sleep because I'm genuinely scared. I'll tell you, for me, my brand has always been be uncomfortable and learn through it. But that sucks sometimes because I'm always uncomfortable in everything I do. I never just get to go like have a show where I check out how cool the Wi-Fi is, you know? I'd love to have that show. But I'm under this, under this, and they said the whole thing was going to take about an hour. And I'm like, man, I got to hang under this thing for an hour. It was so hard to let go and get on that rope and actually hang for the very first time over the edge. And my fiance is with me, and she's got her headphones on because she can hear my microphone, and she's off. She's crying because I'm so scared. And I finally let go, and I'm hanging over the top of that thing, and I'm slowly moving toward the edge to get under and start cleaning. And they go, "Oh, hold up!" And I was like, "What do you mean, hold up?" And first of all, don't up while I'm out on a rope. We need to walk gingerly into that one. We need to be like, "Excuse me, everyone." But they go, "Up, hold up." And I was like, what's happening? My heart's pounding. Mike, the guy I was with, his GoPro on his head broke and fell. It took 40 minutes to get it fixed. I sat out there for 40 minutes until we could even start shooting.
Oh, my God.
And so that was me. I hated that. I hated it. And that was an episode that was really difficult for me. But on the flip side, I told a story, or it's a story like, on the 4th of July, we had an episode about a guy named Ralph who had served our country in Afghanistan. And he went over, and he had both of his legs blown off as an IED hit him. That's what he did. He went, though, and he found where the bombs were, and he got caught up. And he almost died. And he came out of it, and he was from Southern California. And he's like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have my legs now. And he was suicidal. He didn't know how to just start reliving. And he said, a guy came up to him and said, hey, there's a lot of things that we do. We have something called sled hockey. And he's like, well, I don't know anything about hockey. So he starts to play the video game. He gets a PS4 and starts to play hockey to learn the rules. And he gets in a sled, and he starts to, at least slide around. And because he doesn't have legs, and even when I did it, you don't get to use your legs. You're in a sled, and you have to use your arms to propel yourself. So you're digging into the ice the whole time. It's very taxing on the body. Luckily, I'm so ripped. And so I'm with him. He ends up starting to be pretty good. Trains his way as like an alternate on the U.S. team, makes the U.S. team. Ends up being like the captain of the U.S. team and winning a gold medal for our country in the Paralympic Games. And so what I got to do was go and spend 3 days with him sharing his story. Now, they beat the crap out of me because they knew they were on TV and I was playing against them, and they checked me and it hurt. But as much as that over the Grand Canyon stuff, it was just the worst to me. Sharing Ralph's story was the best to me. And I wouldn't have got to do that without that. And so there have been some situations that I've been petrified to do and so thankful when I got out of. But overall, everything that so far that I've been able to do, like my net gain is I've always got a net gain. And I'm so proud that I've been able to kind of build that for myself and for the others around me.
Yeah, I caught one of the stories. I can't recommend it enough. I'm going to go and watch it myself. So that's the best recommendation I could give.
The best recommendation from him is he hasn't seen it yet. He goes, I'm going to
recommend. I watched one, and I'm going to watch the rest.
I'd like to recommend
it. Coming back.
My best recommendation is a show I haven't seen, so trust me.
I did watch one.
I'm giving you a hard time. Come on.
Let's talk about one of the other shows that you do, and it's really cool the way that they format it. Bobby's kind of like this permanent mentor on American Idol. So for all of us out there who are always in search and in quest of advice, what's the best advice you've passed on to a contestant?
Well, it's the advice I pass on to anybody, even when I come and speak to people in industry. It's that if you're they get so nervous before they go on stage, and I'll pull them aside, and I can help them technically a bit, and I can say, hey, do this song or sing in this key, and that happens occasionally, but mostly they go, I'm so nervous about this. Right. And I say, hey, listen, how many times in your life are you able to be nervous about something good? And they're like, well, not a lot. Like, think about that for a second. Think of the gift that you have right now. You're about to try and do something that you feel so good that it gets to happen to you that you are extremely nervous. Like, the first thing you need to do is imagine and realize that is a gift to you. Your body is reacting in a way physically because you're about to do something that you've always dreamed of doing. Or you're about to close a deal. Or you're about to make a pitch. Or you're about to public speak. Your body is reacting in a way that you're physically not used to, and it feels uncomfortable because you're about to get to try something awesome. Like, that doesn't happen a whole lot. And what I'm telling you isn't going to make you less nervous, but at least it's going to make you appreciate it and not want to kill it and not want to make it go away for any other reason other than you just want to go and perform well. And then it's also, yeah, you should be nervous. This is a big deal. If it wasn't a big deal, you wouldn't be nervous. You get a big deal. Congratulations. Here's your big deal. For me, nerves are all about why are you nervous. Sometimes being nervous sucks because not all life's great. Sometimes we get hit with news we don't like, or we get some medical stuff. I've had it myself. You're like, oh, I'm so anxious. And there's a difference in anxious and nervousness, and sometimes those words get just kind of intertwined. And if you're nervous because you have something awesome about to happen, like, look at that gift for a second. And then I talk to them about that. And then it's also, hey, you're nervous, but so is everybody else. And you're going to be less nervous the more you actually do it. So this doesn't work out. Okay, you're going to do it again. This isn't going to make you stop doing it. And just know that the more times that you run the race, the less nervous you're going to be about the race. And then it's fail until you don't. And it's back to what my mantra is, So that's mostly what I work with those kids about. Because they're all kind of idiots. Because I was an idiot when I was 16 or 17 years old, Right. We're just idiots at that age. Right. And so, they don't want to listen to me tell them how to sing. They're better singers than I am. And I need people to talk the idiocy out of me at times. And that's kind of my job on that show, too, for the most part.
No, it's fight, grind, repeat, right? And that's the one thing about a lot of kids, and I think it's much harder today because of social media. They think that they need to be fully developed and done by the time they get on that American Idol stage, and they don't think about there are those steps to develop further and be better at what you do. So I think your message resonates incredibly well now, especially with a lot of our young people are going through. I've got daughters who are about to be 18 and just turned 15, and they go through it all the time, and I love the message, and I can't wait to tell them I heard that message from you today. All right, I do want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about some of your great fundraising efforts and how you got involved and how you chose the avenues you wanted to take in terms of trying to make a difference in our community at large.
I've always said I'm the most selfish philanthropist that I know because I chase and try to help things that have happened to me. I wish for once I'd be like, I guess I'm going to help some birds because I don't give a crap about birds. But I don't, I don't. I don't give a crap about birds, But what I do, for me, it's been making sure people can eat. There's a lot of food insecurity. I had food insecurity, so I work with a lot of people on that. Animals. I love animals. So, but have literally done millions of dollars for kids in hospitals. I work a lot with St. Jude just because they take people from every single state, every single city, and they pay for everything. There's no travel cost, no food cost, no medicine cost. I don't live in the city where St. Jude is. And sometimes people are like, why St. Jude? Why not here or here or here? It's because I'm not going to penalize somebody because I don't live near them. Because people help me that didn't always live near me. And we've probably done $20 million from St. Jude, like on my show and through, me doing comedy. And I was in the hospital as a kid. I mentioned that earlier. I ruptured my spleen, and it was a whole deal. And I died and came back to life twice. No, I didn't. But you can say that, and nobody can prove you wrong, right? Like, that's always the crazy thing about that. Someone's like, I died. I walked in the tunnel. I saw Abe Lincoln taking shots. I can't say they didn't. So, but for me, it's important to give. To me, it's important to give back to those things that gave to me. I'm still trying to find how I can feel like I'm totally worth what I'm doing, and that's the only way that I get traction. That when I go to bed at night, or when I finish a year, or and look back at what I've done, that's my traction to know what I've really done. Because success and ratings and TV shows and fancy stuff, and that goes away, comes and goes and comes and goes. But what doesn't is the ability to help somebody and how you can actually help them get out of a situation. So for me, that's why I do it. Again, I wish I was not as selfish about my endeavors, but I am very passionate about those that I can help because they've affected me.
Makes a difference, man. It really does. and while we're on the subject, talking about food insecurity, North Texas Food Bank. I'm just going to say that. Look it up. It's incredible. We've done a lot of work with them. I do want to go back to some of the fun stuff, though, because I can't figure out when Bobby Bones sleeps. A new development deal with BBC TV. What do you got going on there? And when do you sleep?
My fiance makes me sleep now a little bit. Like, there's a new balance to my life. This is the thing I didn't know, and bear with me for a second. I didn't know that women rule the relationship.
Welcome, brother.
I had no idea.
Welcome. Tell them, ladies.
thought I was going to get married, get engaged, get married, really put on 2 pair of pants. I was going to have the pant. Nope. Like, so she has forced me to have a bit of balance for the first time ever in my life. She also encourages me to, so I sleep a little more. But she also encourages me to really value the things that are most important to me and not just find worth in my work. And there are still a few things that are extremely important to me in my work that, I mentioned my grandmother adopted me. We were kids, and we watched and listened to the Grand Ole Opry all the time. At first, I hated it because I was like 6. And I was like, why do I? But then it was what we did together. We listened to it on the radio. We watched it on TV when it was on TNN or CMT or whatever channel it was. And it really became something that was important in my life because it was important to her. And I always dreamed of playing the Opry as a comedian, maybe, playing music. I got to Nashville, and, I started to tour, and I'm doing theaters, doing stand-up, and my friend Eddie and I, we have a comedy duo that does pretty well, and so the Opry invites me to come out and perform at the Opry and do stand-up. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing for me. And so I go to the Grand Ole Opry, and I'm in the circle, and I'm telling jokes. I'm nervous as I possibly can be, but I have that talk with myself. I'm like, hey, you're nervous because this is awesome. And I go out, and I do pretty good. It wasn't my best work because I wasn't physically, feeling as comfortable as I should, but that's okay. And I go out, and to me, at the very end of the night, because it was so important to my grandmother, as a comedian, you're not supposed to cover jokes. You're definitely not supposed to steal jokes, but you're not supposed to cover jokes. But I said, hey, my grandmother is the reason I'm right here today. And there was a comedian named Jerry Clower from way back in the day who was from the Deep South. And I was like, I like to tell a Jerry Clower joke because it was so important to my grandmother. So I tell the joke, and I get a laugh. And I got an applause, and it was so warm. And I left the Opry, and they invited me back. And so I've now played the Opry 15 times. And I executive produce an Opry TV show, and I'm out. And I do that show every Saturday night. And it's on Peacock, the streaming app, and it's on the internet, all this stuff. So last week I'm at the Opry, and sometimes I get tired, and Caitlin's like, hey, remember why you like to do the Opry? Because Opry doesn't really pay me that much. I just do it because I love it. She's like, remember why you love to do the Opry? She goes, because you love to do the Opry. You're not doing this for a paycheck. You're not doing this for any other reason other than it is what you love to do, and it means something to you. So I'm out, and they say, I'm hosting the TV show, and they go, hey, can you go do 5 minutes of comedy between Reba's 2 sets? And for those who don't know who Reba is, you should walk out of the room. But I love Reba. I've been lucky enough to get to know her over the past 5 or 6 years, and Reba does wardrobe changes like crazy. All her live acts, but she was shooting the Grand Ole Opry, and then she was going to do an NBC special, and they said, hey, we need you to cover for 5 minutes as we just move the Opry stage around. So I go out, and I'm doing 5 minutes of material, and feeling pretty good about it, and I love the Opry crowd. The Opry crowd, sometimes they're 110. They don't get my jokes, but other than that, for the most part, most people are doing pretty good. I'm making them laugh, and so I get in my ear, my TV earpiece, like, hey, Reba's not ready. We need you to continue. Well, I didn't prepare much more than 5 minutes. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm just digging jokes out. I'm finding people in the crowd. And luckily for me, which isn't always the case, I'm killing. I was on a high. And I was just making jokes with people. And so they're like, Reba's still not ready. And it's 14 to 15 minutes in at this point. I'm alone on stage with a microphone. And they're like, Reba's not ready. So 17 minutes in, I see Reba on the side stage. Now, you got to understand, it has always been, and I guess I haven't really told this to anybody yet. You're going to be the first people I tell this to. It's always been my dream to be invited to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. And I see Reba coming toward me, and she's dialed in. And what they do at the Opry is someone comes to surprise you that is kind of a hero or someone that you have always looked up to, and they show up and they invite you to be a member of the Opry as a surprise. and I see Reba, and she's marching slowly, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And I can't believe it. I'm like, I've been waiting. And in my mind, I see myself at 7 with my grandmother. I see myself the first time they invited me to the Opry. I see myself every time I've watched the show. And Reba's getting closer, and she's not going to her. It was originally she was going to walk over to her microphone and be like, hey, thank you, Bobby, and then start, that's a night that the lights went out in Georgia, whatever. And so, but she passes her microphone, and she keeps walking toward me. And I never am able to predict when this stuff's going to happen to me, because I always just feel so happy and so grateful that it does. And she walks up to me, and she puts her hand on my shoulder, and I can feel my heart in my neck. And I'm like, I'm taking it all in because I want to remember this moment forever. And she goes, all right, Bobby, that was funny. All right, go. Get off stage.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I didn't get invited to be a member of the Opry.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I walked you right up to it, didn't I? And you thought it was coming. But I love it. And I sleep a little more, and I continue to do what I love because of my fiance now, who is a great influence in my life, to answer your question.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I was wavering back and forth. I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. You have done so much, and you continue to do so much, and there's new TV shows coming out, and you're doing stuff on Twitch, and there's so much that you're doing, Bobby. But I am curious if you have considered or would consider getting into politics. Would you consider running for governor of Arkansas?
I have been asked, honestly, and I am not going to now. I had a senator actually call me last week and was like, hey, thinking about running? And I was like, I don't want to run unless I feel like I'm absolutely needed. I don't need the clout. I don't need the fame that a lot of our politicians seek. They want to be the politician and have, hey, I'm the politician. I don't need that. And I'd have to make a whole lot less money. And I'd never had money until now, honestly.
Finally getting it.
Yeah, it's like I don't need anything that job allows or is supposed to allow except me being able to go, this is what I'm passionate about. The same thing with my philanthropic efforts. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to help. Because you can't go in and fix everything. Heck, sometimes they don't fix anything. And so I had a senator call me and say, hey, are you thinking about running? And I said, here's why I would. Here's why I don't want to. And I said, only I'm going to if I ever feel like you just have to. And he says, right now, if you want to be the governor, you can be. He said, heck, you could probably win right now. But right now is not the time. He said, not for how you do it and not for what you want to do. He was like, right now is not the time. Doesn't matter what side you want to be on. Right now is not the time unless you want to get eaten alive for no reason other than just existing in that world. And so, will I? Yes. Am I doing it now? No. I do believe that what I want to do with that position eventually is what I'm doing now. And I've got as big a voice now than I would doing that right now as well.
Can you forecast that timetable?
I don't know. When they fire me from this stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
You know, it's every 4 years or 8 years. And, I'm only 19, so I have a lot of... I don't know. Who knows? I can't forecast anything. All the stuff that happens to me now, I'm still blown away by.
I don't know if you'll agree with this statement, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I think that what you have done and the way you do it and the way you go about it, you've had moments where you've helped change people's lives. What has that meant to you, being able to be that kind of force in our country?
It's funny that you position it that way, because what it means to me, what it feels like to me is I haven't done enough because people changed my life. Yeah, there's never a moment where I'm like, I did it, I changed more lives, all right, I'm going to check out now. I don't feel like I've done enough because people got me here. People fed me. Like at the most basic, people fed me. And people not fed me, I don't know where I would be. Maybe doing stuff to get money to have food, stuff I didn't want to do, stuff I did. Maybe I'm selling drugs. Maybe, I don't know. So I appreciate you asking the question like that. But in my mind, I don't feel it like that. I feel like I haven't done enough because I was completed by other people given to me, and I obviously haven't completed my efforts yet.
You've done a lot for women in country music. What's your motivation?
I was raised by all women. People ask me that all the time, like, why are you so supportive of women? I was like, because if my mom or grandma was here, they'd beat my butt if I wasn't. Like, again, everything I do is selfish. it's like, there was an absolute gap in what's happening with, and not just women, but diversity. And so my last contract, I negotiated an hour nationally to just make sure I could get some great female artists on to manipulate the charts so people would see they were going up the charts, maybe play them on their stations. For me, it was all a strategic move. And people were like, well, you must have spent many years thinking about this and, how you're going to help affect the future of. And I'm like, no. My grandma would take a belt to my butt if I wasn't. Like, let me simplify this. I was raised by all women. That's what I understand. I'm me because of that. And we need more of that out in the world. We're cavemen. So that's what it is. There is a lack. In my life, I try to help where there are lacks. And right now, there's a big effort with me in the same kind of space with diversity in country music as well. So it's just not a bunch of white dudes running around, honestly. And so, there's a space that needs to be filled. I try to fill as many as I can in a way that is organic and that I can stay passionate about, because I don't want to walk in and be like, I did this, and then never pay back attention to it again.
I love it, man. I love it. We share probably more than you think we would. My father died when I was only 12. So my mom raised me, and I hear you, man. That belt and that voice in the back of your head from those mother figures.
And picking a switch. You guys know they're about picking switches?
Oh, come on.
Go pick a switch. I'm about to whoop your butt. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I think I'll go get me a little one. Yeah. Okay, I think I'll go get me a big one next time. Boom, boom. There is no win. That's what I've learned in picking switches.
Oh, man. You have to excuse me for this, because this is one of those cliche interview questions. But in your case, Bobby, because you have done so much and your experience has been so varied, I do think it plays. When you look at your accomplishments, and I know I'm forcing you to do so because you probably don't spend a lot of time doing that because you're busy doing more stuff. When you think about your accomplishments, what sticks out to you? What has the resonance and the meaning and that deeper meaning for you?
I mean, the deeper meaning is just a bit of representation to people that come from places where I come from, to know you can do it. There wasn't that for me. And I know we're getting close to wrapping this up, and I thank you all for sitting through me talk, and I hope this was something to you that you can take something away from or be entertained by. And anytime people are out and will listen to me talk, even if your lanyard forced you here, I'm so just greatly appreciative. But for me, it's and the same thing when it's with women or diversifying music. If it's artists of color or artists that have different sexuality, or for me, it's if there's a kid on food stamps or on welfare who is not getting a good education, doesn't have a good parent, doesn't have, I'll be that guy for you. You can look at and go, well, if he can do it and he can find the right people to help him do it, people at church, people at school, then I can do it. And so that is what it fundamentally to me. It's to provide representation so people also know they can do it as well. It's not that cool of an answer, but it is why I think I continue to go. And through that representation, I'm able to help in other ways too and give back. But I just want people to know that it can be done. The world, in what capacity, whatever capacity, if it's not my story, even your story, even what you're doing, the world's bendable. We think it's not. We think it's linear, and you got to go A to B. We got to make this deal A to B. We got to do this promotion A to B. We got to sell market A to B. The world is so bendable. You can manipulate your life the way you want it to be done. Because others haven't doesn't mean you can't. I sit in front of you, not that talented, and I'm not saying that as a joke. Not a good singer, not a good runner, not a good dancer, not particularly that funny, except I've tried a bunch of jokes and people haven't laughed and I found the ones that worked. But I don't really have that talent. But what I do have is the ability to not stop. And that is an ability. And I also know that just because people have always said you go A to B doesn't mean you can't go A to F and then back to B. And then once you do it, then everybody realizes, oh, that was A to B. So that's it. The world is bendable. Whatever you want to do, go do it. It probably won't work the first time, but if you keep doing it, it means you love it, and you're going to get better at it, and then you're going to do it. Thank you. I thought that I guess we're not done, but I thought that was like the good end. I was like, thank you, and then And then,
That is an ender, but I do want to I do want to disagree briefly. It's a really cool story, and it's a great example. More importantly, for so many of us, and especially for the younger generation who can look at people who have gone through some of the things you've done and still come out the other side. So I want to give a great round of applause for the great Bobby Bones.
thank you, guys.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Great job.
That was fun.